Some say entrepreneurs are made, others say they're born. Founder Arif argues it's both. In this episode, we dig into his natural drive to build, the risks he took early, and how persistence and intuition guide him in business and life. Arif, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you for having me.
Where are we?
We are in the heart of Victoria Park. So we're a couple blocks away from the Calgary, the Dome. The Dome that's going to be gone in 2 years.
Yeah, no doubt. I saw that on the way here. They're building a new one now.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They are. So we're going to be really close, but we're excited. We're excited for probably the increase in traffic.
No doubt. Foot traffic for sure.
Yeah.
You've built multiple businesses at this point, which we'll get into, but I'm curious where the whole entrepreneurial journey started for you.
So I look back and I think about like kind of where I started and obviously where I've got, where I am today. And I feel like I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always knew I wanted to be a business owner. I just didn't know what. I just didn't know what I was going to do, when I was going to do it, for how long I was going to do it. But I knew I wanted to be a business owner. And I knew that at a very young age. I was also lucky enough that my dad actually owned a pharmacy in East Village. So he's had the same pharmacy in East Village since 1987. So he's had it for close to 38 years. So at a very early age, I essentially grew up working for a small business. So in a small business. So I learned everything, man. I learned answering phone calls, doing deliveries, running the till, cleaning, mopping, scrubbing toilets, you name it, I did it. So I learned at a very early age, and I'm talking like probably before 10 years old, what it means to be part of a business, how to grow a business, how to take care of clients. My dad was a big believer that the customer is always right. The customer is always right. How to be successful. Work hard and you will do great things and great things will follow you.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love hearing, it's hit or miss whether entrepreneurs these days grew up in an entrepreneurial family or whether they kind of started along that path on their own. And it's always interesting to hear because I'm curious, do you think entrepreneurial tendencies are learned? Or do you think they're learned through your upbringing and that sort of thing? Or do you think there's a element of them that's innate that you're just kind of born with?
That's a really good question. I think it's a bit of both. I think it's definitely innate. Being an entrepreneur is not easy. There's a lot of highs, there's a lot of lows. There's definitely more lows in the beginning. But being an entrepreneur, I think, a part of it you can be taught, and you can grow up in a small business or a family business, and you can kind of obviously read books and talk to people about what it means to be an entrepreneur. But a lot of it is like within, and either you're born with it or you're not born with it. I kind of look at it as like, being an athlete, being a really good athlete, being an NHL player, being an NBA player, like. You go through training and you get coaching, but ultimately sometimes it's just like talent, right? You have to have that God-given talent because that ultimately takes you kind of to the next level. So with entrepreneurship, you can get taught, how to be an entrepreneur, but a lot of it comes from within for sure, and maybe you're just born with it.
Yeah, definitely. It's like working that muscle but you have to have the muscle in the first place.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. If the muscle's not there, then you can't strengthen it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, a lot of people that grow up in a family business, they end up not leaving, right? Because it's, maybe it's passed down into your hands and that sort of thing. Was that an option for you? Was that something that you could have done, was kind of follow in your father's footsteps? Or?
Yeah, potentially. And it was discussed, probably in my teenager years or before I went to university. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a pharmacist. A pharmacist is, a different type of individual. I knew I wanted to be client-facing for sure, and I wanted to sell. Just what I wanted to sell, I just didn't know. So being a pharmacist required, you'd have to go through your undergrad degree, and then there's a little bit more education with respect to that. So the idea of being in school for 8 years after high school probably was a bit scary for me. School wasn't really for me, especially like post-secondary schooling. So I think that was probably one of the main reason actually that I didn't actually go into pharmacy is because of all that time and energy you'd have to put into from like the scholastic part. I'm very impatient. I like to move fast, and to go on that 8-year journey would be challenging. And so it was like a tough conversation with my father about like, hey, eventually when I retire, I'd love to give the business to you, but it just wasn't in the cards. And it wasn't in the cards for me, or I have 2 older sisters who also went down different paths, and it just wasn't in the cards for them either. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
There's no point in pursuing something that doesn't come naturally, right? Or you're not excited about, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because without passion, the business is not going to do well. So.
100%. Yeah. You said that you knew that you wanted to be client facing. I think that's really interesting, but you didn't know what you wanted to sell. How did you know that? What was that feeling?
I love talking, and I love talking to people. I get energy, drive, passion. My wife was just talking. We were just talking about this a couple of days. She's like, your pulse changes. Like you get a different energy or a different wavelength when you talk to people, and you get energized. And so I knew that at a very early age. Like I just loved interacting with people, with different people, and so naturally I felt, okay, I probably need to go in some sort of like a sales role. I was also very independent. I was very independent growing up. I felt like I didn't really want to rely on people, kind of do-it-yourself type of individual. And so I was independent, and I felt like I wanted to be in front of individuals, and I felt like I could sell. And so I'm like, okay, how do I connect those two as much as possible? And I was a risk taker. And so I felt like combining all those things either would work really well or may not, but only time will tell if that was the case. So
yeah, I think that, I mean, you're describing characteristics of an entrepreneur, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily a rule follower, kind of taking risks, that sort of thing. That makes sense. You also said that school wasn't really for you. What do you mean by that? What did that kind of look like for you? Obviously, you didn't want to do 8 years, like you mentioned. But.
Yeah. So I was really good. So. Junior high school, I was really good at math, and I was really good at phys ed. Those are the 2 subjects I was really good at. I was a quick problem solver. So I remember even when I was, in math class, even in like grade school, elementary school, I would, I would be given like a math problem, and I wouldn't do the work. I would just know how to get to the answer. So I skipped all the steps just to get to the end result. And so
which school doesn't really typically reward.
No, they don't like that.
Yeah.
Conventional schooling doesn't like that. So, I'd get like 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10, and I'd be like, but I got the answer right. And my teacher would be like, yeah, but you didn't show your work. I'm like, but I got the answer right. Isn't that the ultimate goal, to get the answer right? They're like, yeah, but you didn't show your work. And so I loved math. I loved phys ed, but I couldn't sit still. I feel like I probably had ADHD, like most business owners, entrepreneurs do, right? Yeah. So I couldn't sit still. I always think about the next thing. Always, moving on to the next thing. So I just realized that, to be a dentist or a doctor or a lawyer or something that required multiple years of like post-secondary school probably just wasn't for me. So I graduated high school. And then I actually I went to U of C, and I got an econ degree. Took me 6 years to get a 4-year degree. So I took kind of like the slow route, the snail route. But I knew I just needed to get a degree, and then kind of move on and then maybe figure out what I wanted to do. And to be honest, it was actually my parents. My parents were big proponents of education. Like education was the most important thing to them. So, they were advocates of me wanting to do my own thing, but they said, get a degree, and then you can kind of figure out what you want to do after. So
at the very least, as a fallback to
potentially. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So were your parents supportive when we'll talk about kind of how you came across your first opportunity, but were they supportive when you found that and you were like, hey, this is what I'm going to do?
Yeah, I think they were always supportive of me if I wanted to do something. I, even at an early age, like even in my teenager years, I did everything possible that I could not to have a 9 to 5, whether it was like a summer job or whatever the case may be. I just knew, I'm like, if I'm an employee, I'm going to get fired. Like, I'm going to get fired really fast because I'm not going to listen. I'm going to end up just doing my own thing. And I think the big thing for me is, like, if I work really hard, someone else is going to reap the benefits of it, like most business owners and entrepreneurs think. So they were definitely advocates of me doing something. It's just what that looked like. It was to be determined. But I mean, even when I was like younger, I mean, I remember, like, I was 16, 17 years old, and I would like my buddy would buy used cars, like salvage cars. I remember the first one was like an Acura RDX. And then we would fix them up and we try and sell them. I would buy like sunglasses. This is during the eBay times. I would buy sunglasses from eBay from China and like sell them. So I was always trying to just do something. But I probably did a lot to eventually get to, obviously I did a lot to get to where I am today. So
Yeah, it's so funny hearing the little hustles that we all had when we were kids, and those are the tells, right? Those are the early tells that, you know, something's coming. Did you have any traditional jobs, or maybe traditional is the wrong word, but, you know, like any jobs before you found your calling?
I had a couple. I had like a telesurveying job when I was probably, I think I was 15 years old. It lasted like maybe a month. I remember I was making $6.45 an hour. And you're just dialing people and you're not even selling them anything. Actually, it wasn't even it was telesurveying. So it wasn't telemarketing, it was telesurveying. And I was literally just calling people, you know, trying to, just interviewing them and just getting data. Mm-hmm. It's funny how data is so important right now, but 26 years ago, we were doing it so differently in terms of collection. So, I did that. I obviously worked at my dad's pharmacy for a number of years. But other than that, I didn't have too many jobs. When I graduated university, I worked at a trust company and then a land development company before I got into the financial services industry full time. But yeah, maybe like 4 or 5. I was also doing like, you know, I was trying to, you know, it's interesting that now that I think back as to, you know, what I was trying to accomplish, I was even like, at one point, I'd put my name down on a list for, to buy a Tim Hortons.
Okay.
And so that 20 years ago, the whole craze was, you know, Tim Hortons were doing so well, you put your name down on the list because the list was so long in terms of opening up a new franchise. And so I remember I did that with my cousin, but the list was so long and they were saying you weren't get a franchise for like 15 years, 20 years. So I think I was like 24 or 25. My cousin and I actually flew to Rochester, New York, and because we were thinking about opening up a Tim Hortons in the U.S. In that Buffalo region, in the New York region, because there's so many Tim Hortons there, and you have so many people crossing over with Niagara Falls. So we had met like the rep over there to think about opening up a Tim Hortons in like either Rochester, Syracuse, or Buffalo.
And that would have been the first in the States at that time, right?
No, there was quite a few. There was quite a few Tim Hortons. Like there was probably like 50 or 60 just in that Buffalo area. But there was a few in, it was a Canadian brand, but because Buffalo was so close, obviously cross over Niagara Falls and then you're, you know, a couple hours more and you're in Toronto. So there was quite a few in that area and then it was spilling over into Rochester, New York. But I literally just wanted to do anything that didn't require me to be an employee. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. How drastically different do you think your life would have been if if the waiting list wasn't 15 years long and you did end up getting a franchise? I
think I would have hated it. Yeah, I would have hated it because that restaurant industry, even if you're part of a franchise and you have brick and mortar's tough, I think first and foremost, especially now. But I think being part of a franchise gives you the benefits of turnkey operations. But I think like I would have been unhappy, being part of the logistics of working there. And it's such a transactional business. It would have been very interesting to do that. So I'm a true believer of like everything happens for a reason. And the fact that it didn't work out was definitely a blessing in disguise for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I've never really thought about this too much, but I'm thinking out loud here, and it kind of seems like you're almost an employee when you're running a franchise, right? Because it's it's so cut and dry for you. It's a formula, and I've never done it. And then there's people that run very successful franchises and franchise businesses, but that's curious. Yeah.
Yeah. It stunts your creativity, big time, right? Because it has its pros and cons, right? You're coming into a turnkey operation and things are already done for you, and your chances of being successful, to be honest, are probably greater than if you're just trying to do something on your own. If you look at a Tim Hortons versus you look at just a normal mom and pop coffee shop, what is your competitive advantage? What is your proprietary product? How are you going to separate yourself from the market? Right. And if you don't have that, and if you don't have an influence, whether it's through social media or whatever the case may be, then your chances of survival are probably 1 in 4.
So your first opportunity comes along, or you find an opportunity to be your own boss for the first time in your life. What does that look like?
I was working at the land development company, and it's interesting. A buddy of mine who worked there, he got life insurance licensed. And at that time, this was in 2012, so this was like 13 and a half years ago. I was like, what the heck is life insurance? Well, I knew what life insurance was, but I didn't think I really knew what it was. And so he got life insurance license, and I'm like, well, and he was telling me how much money he was making while he was working at the land development company. And I'm like, well, this is cool. Maybe I should get a life license too. So I remember this now, I was not the most studious individual. But I remember taking the test and passing. I think I passed on the second try. I failed the first time. And then I got a life insurance license. And so now I had this life insurance license, and I was trying to understand the logistics of, you have to work or, hang your license somewhere, and you got to follow the regulatory body, right? Alberta Insurance Council and all that sort of stuff. But I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I have this license, and now how can I offer my services to someone or an individual? And so I was lucky that at that time, and even right now, I truly feel like I'm a strong connector of people, but my network is quite large. And so I remember I sold my first insurance policy, and I made $11,000. And I was like, what the heck? And I got a lot of help from, an accountant friend that I knew about kind of putting the strategy together, because I was super new. But the client who I had sold it to, and he's actually like a friend, he's like, you know what? I want to support you. I want to help you get started. He was also a fellow business owner. And so he's like, you don't really know what you're doing, but you're going to figure it out. And you're going to find a way to figure it out. So, at that time, I was like, okay, I feel like within my network, I can utilize that and offer services. So I remember, I think the next day I quit. And at that time, a good buddy of mine, he actually owned like a Remax brokerage. And so I quit. I called him. I said, hey, can I rent office space from you? And he's like, hell yeah, no problem. And so he basically gave me access to all the realtors, all the mortgage brokers, the lawyers there, and I basically just mined. I just mined for business. I started a company called AK Wealth Management. It was a digital marketing agency that I used here, who is funny enough is our client, and I just mined for business, and I did really, really, really well as just a one-person operation. I did everything. I prospected. I picked up the phone. I wrote insurance applications. I did everything and anything you needed to do.
I love when people say that they had to do everything in the early stages of the business, because that's not often the case. And I feel like people who haven't or are incapable of doing every position or haven't done that in the past have a bit of a disadvantage, because they don't know what every piece of the operation looks like. So my question is, how much of an advantage do you feel like you had after having to do all of those pieces that you probably don't do anymore because you have people for that?
I'm a big believer of the phrase or mantra, don't tell somebody else to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. Mm-hmm. And so, I was lucky enough because I didn't actually have a true brick and mortar, so I was just paying rent. I was kind of just doing everything here and there. But I think it taught me that, the things that you don't want to do, you have to do them if you want to survive. And if you don't do them, you can't afford to pay somebody else right now to do them. So you have to do it. You won't survive. So those first couple of years really taught me, like, I have to do everything and I have to learn really quickly how to do everything. Because if I don't, then I just won't survive, and I'll have to go back to maybe, doing something that I don't want to do, and more importantly, that I'm going to be unhappy.
I love that.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of those lessons that you learned in the early days that you still kind of activate or use or like reference back to today?
There's no substitute for hard work. Hard work, I feel, is everything, regardless of what you do. Definitely work hard. I feel like I'm a true believer, if you work hard in a country like Canada, you will succeed, because there is no substitute for hard work. So definitely work hard. 50 no's eventually will lead to a yes. And so persistence is so important. If you have a process, trust the process. Don't deviate from kind of your process. If you believe in what works, stick to it. Because only you will know if it's going to succeed or not.
It comes time at some point in your journey to make your first hire. Obviously, you've got some cash rolling and that sort of thing. And I feel like it's a common occurrence, especially for solopreneurs, to not know when that is, and what that looks like. What was it for you?
Yeah, so it's funny. I just put a post on LinkedIn about my first hire, and it was a few years ago, but it was 2021. But I'll backtrack a bit and kind of talk about kind of how we started and how I felt like the business needed to go. So it was 2013 to 2016. I was kind of, on my own, one-man operation, doing really well. At that time, I was obviously offering life and estate planning strategies to clients. And I had built up like a small group benefit business. I was also offering investments to my clients as well. So I got investment licensed. But I'm a big believer of you can go fast alone, or you can go far with a group. And so it was funny enough, I had met my current business partner, my OG, I like to call him, in 2016. So we actually we were at a Sun Life conference, and the district vice president actually put us at the same table together. And so we hit it off. We had a really good conversation. He came from a different world. He was, an investment advisor at a different investment brokerage, but we kind of went our separate ways. And then, funny enough, like, I don't even know how this happened, but 6 months later, I just called him. I literally called him out of the blue, and I was like, in my head, I'm like, I think there's something here. I'm a big believer of like following your intuition and trusting your gut, like a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, because if all else fails, at least that's kind of innate and it's within. Mm-hmm. And so we had a really good conversation. We went to Proof, like a local cocktail bar, and we had like, a 3-hour conversation. And we realized there was something here. We just didn't know what, but we realized there was something here. So in early 2017, we actually, he left his brokerage. He joined essentially my business, AK Wealth Management, but we rebranded to a company called KL Advisor Group, which was literally at the time my last name, his last name, super original. And it was just two of us. And we were still doing everything because it was just the two of us. And so we were doing everything for the first 4 years until 2021. And we hired our first hire, Luke, who's still with us today. And it was just because of the network and the fact that I had known him for so long. I went to high school with him, so I had known him for like...
With Luke?
With Luke,
okay. For
20 years. And I randomly saw him. It was a late night escapade after Stampede. And I remember we were eating pizza, and I looked and I said, Luke? And he said, yeah. And I'm just like, where are you working right now? And he told me he was working at one of the big banks. And so... we felt 4 years into the business that was the right time to bring somebody in, because we were just struggling. We were doing everything and anything. And in order for us to grow and scale and be successful, we needed help, and we needed good help. So I think the turn or the momentum shift was, we have enough cash flow. But even if we didn't, in order for us to go, we need to bring someone sooner than later.
Rather than burn yourself to the ground trying to get to the point where you can, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then it's too late.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Then it's way too late.
Yeah. So you obviously had great luck with your first hire because he's still here today.
Yeah.
That's not often the case, or not always the case, rather. How do you go about hiring? What does your hiring strategy look like? And is it, there's so much that's feel. There's obviously, especially in your industry, there's probably some like, not red tape, but criteria, right? That obviously matters. But how do you go about that? How do you manage it? And have you ever had a bad experience? What did that look like?
So I feel like there's always the formal process of looking for people and hiring people, whether you're interviewing yourself or you are using a recruiter for, whatever the case may be. So the formal part is always, I call it that honeymoon phase, right? So, you're interviewing a potential candidate for your business and you're asking those questions, you're asking the easy questions, you're asking the tough questions, you're asking the culture questions. But I think it just goes back to following your intuition and trusting your gut. And so eventually the interview or finding those people in terms of that formal process will break down. And ultimately it comes to, are they just a good person? Mm-hmm. Are they just a good human being? Are they gonna fit with your core values? Because to me, when all else fails within your organization, you have to look back at your core values and you have to say, is someone following your core values? And to me, that's actually the determination if someone should stay or if, it's just not a good fit. And so understanding and believing in I'm going to make the right decision. And if I don't make the right decision, that's okay, right? Sometimes you're going to make mistakes. But you have to make mistakes. You have to learn from those mistakes to move forward. And so we've been lucky enough because, we've followed our intuition and trusted our gut that we haven't had a lot of turnover. And I think it's because we followed a really, in the beginning we follow a very regimented process, but then the second part of the interview process is just like, who are you? What do you like to do? Tell me about yourself. What do you like to do for fun? If it's a Saturday or Sunday, what do you like to do? What do you like to do when you're not working? What does work mean to you? And so we have that formal process and then we have that informal process that, to be honest, is what we lean on more because that's what's likely going to determine if a person stays or goes.
It's so important. And I mean, realistically, what's the stat? You're spending, 33% of your adult life minimum, for us probably a little bit more at work, right? So you want to be able to spend time with these individuals. You
have to click, you have to jive, and you have to be able to build personal relationships with the individuals that you're working with. And when you're spending 8 hours a day, 5 days a week with the same person or the same group of people, you have to be able to laugh, you have to be able to joke, you have to be able to talk about other things beside work, because then it becomes too mundane, too almost boring. And that's when I feel like people leave, because that's when they start to become unhappy.
Definitely.
So
yeah. Avoid it at all costs.
Yeah, for sure. Culture
is obviously kind of related to that question. I think you were touching on it a little bit with probably how you go about hiring and that sort of thing. But what does culture look like in your organization, and how do you upkeep something that gets people excited to come to work every day?
So I'm a big believer of the work is always going to be there, right? The work's never going to go away. You're going to have to talk to clients. You're going to have to do admin related tasks, because regardless of what department you're in, there's always going to be those work-related, activities. But to me, culture is actually, if I think about it, culture is having good culture. For me, is my team not having Sunday Scaries. So Sunday Scaries is something that you hear all the time, and people are scared to go to work on Monday, either because they don't like the work or they don't like the people that they're working. And so to me, individuals who work with us, and I've asked them, I'm like, do you have Sunday Scaries? And I think half of them are actually like, what is that? And then we actually talked about what Sunday Scaries are. So to me, that's kind of a big proponent of what culture is and what good culture is. Culture also means feeling like you're in a very nurturing environment, and feeling you're in an environment where you're trusted, you're respected, and more importantly, it's okay to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. I'll be the first person to admit it. I'm an OCD type A individual, but I also make mistakes. Everybody's human. But creating an environment, creating like a nurturing, fostering environment where people are okay to make mistakes, come to you to say that they make a mistake, and then figure out how to adapt, pivot, and actually fix the problem so we can move on. And so core culture to me is so important. And I think that's the difference between people staying and people going, right? And so, money is important. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I'm in a very monetary-based industry as running an investment advisory firm. So money's definitely important. You got to pay your bills. You want to be able to retire. But the difference between someone staying and going is how you treat them, how you make them feel, and are they in an environment where they feel like they can grow.
Have you ever had anybody who maybe self-identified out of, it's interesting because everybody has great culture for the people that it makes sense for, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's, but sometimes people are just simply not a fit based on how they think or how they operate or whatever the case may be. Have you had anybody, obviously you don't have to name names or anything like that, but that's been the case? And how did that affect the culture of the business?
Yeah, so it's funny you bring that up is because we did have someone like that probably about 4 or 5 months ago. So we went through an acquisition in September 24, and that individual had brought on his support staff, and he just had one person. And so he brought that individual over. And so it wasn't our hire. So it wasn't our process. It wasn't our ability to interview them through that formal process and then obviously that informal process. So it was more just the absorption of, hey, I've had this person for a number of years. And they're coming with me. And we said, okay, cool. The last thing you want is when you go through an acquisition is to have not just turnover, but to have, the ability for someone, when you're meeting with new clients to not have consistency. And so this individual did join our organization. And, within the first couple months, we knew something was off. There was a sense of entitlement, a sense of, hey, I'm better than everybody else, or I'm not better than everybody else, but I'm better than the individuals that I'm working on with my team. And I should have a different role, and more importantly, like a superior role. And so the attitude change, like again, it's that honeymoon phase, right? When you're in that transition phase or, the first couple months, it's that honeymoon phase and you want to say the right things and you want to do the right things, but you definitely bite your lip when you feel not aligned with the leadership team. And so that changed really quickly after that honeymoon phase. So it was like, December, January. And then we had to have a tough conversation with this individual. And we literally went back to our core values. So, Qopia Financial's core values are impact, collaboration, integrity, and authenticity. And we realized really quickly that this individual perhaps couldn't jive or didn't match with not even one of them. And so, at that point we had to make the tough decision, but what was best for the organization to just part ways. And, I feel like it's, I feel like we parted ways amicably, but sometimes you have to pull the plug, and you have to pull the plug sooner than later before things snowball and that individual tarnishes or becomes toxic to the culture that you've built over time.
It's like the bad apple, right?
Yeah,
it
takes
spreads.
It takes only one bad apple to infiltrate, the entire harvest. So.
Tough conversations. It's a really interesting topic. I think in current culture, specifically in Canadian, nice culture, people avoid tough conversations or people pleasing or whatever the case may be is very prominent. How do you have any advice for maybe going about tough conversations or how to carry them in a way that's productive and true to maybe at your core values or your team or whatever the case may be?
Yeah. So tough conversations are inevitable. And you have to have the tough conversations. You can't avoid tough conversations because tough conversations once you get to the it's challenging to get to the tough conversation, but once you get to the tough conversation and you overcome the tough conversation, you've made progress. So maybe you're taking a half a step back to have a tough conversation and you both leave the room, unhappy or upset or whatever the case may be, but eventually you come back and, if you didn't finish the conversation at that time, it ultimately drives the business forward and drives the relationship forward. So tough conversations are inevitable, but how you have those tough conversations, I think, are so important. Our organization, and particularly me, is big believers of kind of following the DISC profile. So are you a D? Are you an I? D is dominant. I is influential. Are you an S? Are you steady? Or are you a C? If you are a D and an individual is talking to a D personality, they like directness, right? Don't fluff, don't sugarcoat. Tell them how it is, because that's how they'll appreciate. That's their love language. That's how they appreciate communication and conversation. Having the tough conversations is super important, but how you have the tough conversations will be the difference in terms of, are you able to move forward, or are you just stuck? Are you at a stalemate? So yeah.
So when you're obviously, if you know what profile, I suppose, if that's the right terminology, these individuals are, you're obviously able to communicate with them more effectively. Does that mean that when you onboard, you ensure that everybody has or goes through this process, or what does that look like? Yeah,
absolutely. So we're just actually, in the process of hiring someone right now, and we wanted to put them through, the DISC profile to figure out, where they are and if they're going to fit. You can't have too many Ds. You can't have too many Is. You can't have if you have too many Ds, everyone's just arguing with each other and everyone's just talking over each other. If you have too many S's or too many C's, then you have those people pleasers. Everyone's like, nothing's getting done because nobody wants to make somebody else upset. And so you need a good collection and a good hybrid of individuals within your organization that essentially complement each other. So bring individuals. I'm a big believer of bringing individuals who are not like you to a certain extent, because they can then well-round the team. What is the point of having 10, 15, 20 individuals who think the same, who act the same? Nothing, I feel, is going to get, not so much nothing's going to get done, but it just won't be productive. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the whole premise of having a team, is you want to create like a well-rounded team, so things can get done, things become efficient, and more importantly, people will challenge you because they think differently about things. I don't have all the answers. I'll be the first person to say it, but I love when my team and the individuals that I surround myself do challenge me, because that's the only way, even I think about myself, that I can improve and kind of move forward, and that will spill over in terms of the organization.
Definitely. Yeah. What's the point of having a team that just agrees with you, right?
Yeah, it's useless then. It's just a bunch of yes people.
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome. You mentioned acquisition. I didn't know that you had done that, which is awesome. Congrats. Yeah. Was that part of the business plan from the get-go, or was it just an opportunity that you kind of identified along the way?
So my business partner are big believers of, or we were at the time when we were in our infancy stage, and then 3-4 years in is like, hey man, let's just go where the money is. If the money's there, let's go there. If the money's here, then let's pivot. Approximately 60% of our growth, or 55 to 60% of our growth, has actually been via acquisition, and 40% has been organic growth. And so we are in this massive paradigm shift right now where you have older investment advisors who are on the cusp of retiring, but they're just struggling to find that succession plan. And the ecosystem and the model that we have built here at Qopia Financial has not only shed light into the industry as to who Qopia is, but we've been able to attract top tier talent who are struggling to find that succession plan. After having multiple conversations with them and multiple interview process with them, because they're interviewing us, just to make sure that we're a right fit for their clients. We've done that, and so we had our first one in 2020. And then we did another one in 2022. And then we actually did 2 more in 2024. So our growth was like this. And then last year, it literally just went like that. So, we grew 190% in 2024 alone.
Wow.
And so I guess for us, sky's the limit for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's awesome. When you talk about, so acquisition is that common in your industry as a growth tactic?
Yeah, definitely. So, when you're outside of the industry, it's very big. But when you're in the industry, and it's probably the same in your industry too, it's actually very small. Mm-hmm. And so most of the individuals, for the most part, like, who the other individuals are, right? And so, growing an organization and being part of an organization, it's our responsibility to make sure that we're getting out there so that people do know who we are, right? Mm-hmm. Because the industry's small, so everyone kind of knows everyone, but how do you separate yourself from everybody else? So you can attract those individuals who are struggling and who do want to be acquired, but just have not found the right, not even just the right individual, the right team to kind of help navigate that succession plan. So acquisitions are definitely common, and I think there's going to be there is right now like a big acquisition transition happening right now in our industry. And so I'm a big believer of like our growth trajectory is at its highest point between now and call it 2030. This is when our organization and our business is going to be able to have the strongest ability to acquire, and then as well as have organic growth.
Right.
So, yeah.
When you're attracting clients and that sort of thing, I imagine obviously a lot of it has to do with, or a portion of it rather, has to do with performance and portfolio and investment philosophy and that sort of thing. But realistically, like any business these days, people are buying from people. So I imagine everything that we've talked about to this point, builds trust with your clients and that sort of thing. But what would you say sets Qopia aside from anybody else?
Yeah. So really good question. Well, I guess I'll take a step back and kind of talk about Qopia and the meaning behind Qopia, because every individual and every brand, in my opinion, should have a story. And so Qopia, in its essence, is actually derived from the word cornucopia, which means plenty, abundance, and nourishment. And so with Qopia, there's actually 5 letters in the word Qopia, and is because there's actually 5 financial services that we try to wrap our clients around. So we have like the wealth management division. We also own a general insurance brokerage as well. We have an in-house mortgage planner, and then we have third-party accounting and third-party estate. And so legal, sorry. And so our whole model is, the more services we can surround ourselves with, I feel like the happier the client will be, because every individual that we introduce to them within our ecosystem is providing unbiased advice. And so if a client needs a lawyer, we can get them in front of a lawyer. If a client needs an accountant, we can get them in front of an accountant. If they have questions about, their mortgage is renewing in a couple of years, I won't do it and our team won't do it. But hey, I got someone 2 doors down who's been doing his discipline for 15 years. And so ultimately, you want to separate yourself from everybody else. And I feel like, we're going in that direction with the organization that we've built. Is, we don't just manage money. We don't just do group benefits. We don't just do financial planning. If you need something else, you can. And so I'm a big believer of the fact that I feel, and the advisors within our organization are essentially the quarterback for our clients. And you're absolutely right. Like, you nailed it on the head. Clients want to work with people that they like and that they trust.
Awesome. It sounds like you're in business to help people, like that. I mean, realistically, right? Like it has no bounds, right? It's like, you need this and we got you. You need this and we got you, kind of thing, which builds trust by definition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the more services you can offer to a client, again, it's that unbiased advice, but the more services you can offer to someone, the just happier they'll be, and they'll just keep coming back to you. And that's what you want. You want a client to keep coming back to you for that advice. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Speaking to community as a business owner, like business is tough,
Yeah.
you know, it's very, very common for individuals to feel alone when, you know, in decision making or whatever the case may be. How important is community to you, and how do you go about finding it?
Community is so important. It goes back on, you know, the fact that you can go fast alone or you can go far with the group. But I've been blessed actually to surround myself with business partners because of that feeling and kind of that phrase that I've kind of lived by. And so I'm lucky enough where, you know, my community actually starts with my business partners. So I can go to them if I'm unhappy, if I'm feeling uncomfortable about something, if I need a second opinion. And ultimately we have that symbiotic relationship where we can bounce ideas off each other. A lot of business owners just don't have that. They don't have that, you know, business partner setup where, you know, they do feel like they're on an island. They do feel like they're alone. And so I've been blessed to have that, which, you know, starts with, you know, that's part of my community. I am also an EO. And so I feel like my entrepreneur organization which is EO. And so I feel like that's also another extension of my community, a group of individuals who I meet with every month that I can lean on, who won't judge, who won't look at me differently, but who are essentially going through the same problems, same issues that I'm probably going through. We're all, you know, in a different industry. We're all selling something different. But, you know, their pains, their struggles, their hurdles are the same ones that I probably have. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize, you know, until I joined EO that, man, like their bullshit's my bullshit. It's the same bullshit. Yeah. It's just different. It's just we're just selling something different. Right. And so for me, community starts with, you know, my business partners, EO. You know, I have a strong group of friends who are also all entrepreneurs, which is very peculiar nowadays. So every time we meet, you know, we shoot the shit, but it always goes back to business. What are you doing? What are you struggling with? What are you working on? How can I support? How can I help? And to me, rounding out the community, to be honest, is when I go home and my wife is, you know, my biggest cheerleader. And so she's also, you know, part of my community.
The support system is integral, you know.
Yeah.
Is your wife in business as well, or no?
No, so she's in PR. Okay. She's got a strong marketing background, and she works for a PR company. So it would be, we talked about this, it'd be very, very, very challenging if both of us were business owners. I feel like it'd have its pros and it'd have its cons for sure. The cons would be both of us would never be around it. We'd never
totally.
be
Yeah.
home.
No quality time.
Yeah. No quality time. Yeah, no. So she is not a business owner, and to be honest, that's probably one of the biggest reasons as to why I've been successful, is because she's been such a strong support system for me in my journey. My journey is her journey, mm-hmm. And you can't do it alone. So I think without her, a lot of this would have been very challenging for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm always curious about time management. Specifically, I mean, you have several businesses obviously on the go and things on the go. You also have, you know, your wife at home and that sort of thing. You have obligations all over the place. How do you choose to manage your time and keep things in check and balance to ensure, you know, you're not burning out, you're you're getting supported, all those different things? Yeah,
for sure. Time management, I think, is kind of that one critical piece that every business owner needs, especially as you're starting to scale. And so, first of all, realizing that you can't do everything is the first thing. I can't do everything. In order for me to grow, I need to do one thing, and I do one thing really well, and that's delegate. And that was always tough for me as a type A, OCD, you know, DI on the DISC profile spectrum. That's always been a challenge, and actually continues to be a challenge for me. But time management becomes easier, in my opinion, once you have the ability to delegate. Delegate the tasks that you probably shouldn't be doing and focus on the tasks that you shouldn't be doing. I'm also a big believer of blocking time. And so, you know, the team makes fun of me because I bought this like timer into my office, and I use that to block like 45-minute intervals. And so I want to be hyper focused for 45 minutes, and I want to get as much as I can done for 45 minutes with this one task. But I've also not integrated into, the advisors all meet monthly. We call it the investment committee meeting, and we all meet monthly and we talk about what's happening in the macroeconomic environment. And my analyst is talking about things, and I actually bring the timer in there. And I asked him, I said, should I bring this? And he's like, absolutely, because it'll keep us on schedule.
Yeah.
And so for me, time management is super important. Trying to juggle so many things. So blocking off time for me is super important, and delegating was very, very important, and something that, to be honest, I probably still could do a better job of doing.
You've got my mind spinning on this idea of keeping a timer, like no phone, no distractions, just kind of get your head down and get the work done with a timer. And then that's really interesting. I want to double click on delegation because I feel like that's one of the biggest issues that people have. Maybe they do it incorrectly. Maybe it's more abdication than delegation. As you've done more of it, what have you learned about doing it effectively?
Delegation is hard for business owners. Trusting is even harder. So being able to trust someone else when you delegate it to them, that they're going to get the job done. And hey, guess what? They're probably going to do a good job of doing it. And they're probably going to do a better job than you of doing it. And they didn't think that you would. And so that's super important. Like, again, trusting that individual to kind of make that decision. But we're big on technology here in our office. And so, we use AI in our meetings as a note taker, like a virtual note taker. And we have that in our client meetings, like in-person meetings. And, we did a full Salesforce build out over the last 6 months. And so we use that to help with, CRM and time management and making sure that, tasks are being delegated. And we have like a platform where I can actually see, okay, is the task being completed? And if it's not being completed, why is it not being completed? And it gives us a good pulse to understand, are you just too busy? Or are you not busy enough? Where can we support you? Where we can help you? And so you kind of, implementing AI and technology to help with time management, I think has been super important for sure.
Love it. Yeah. I think a lot of people are scared of those technologies that we're talking about, and really shouldn't be, because ultimately they're tools to allow us to do better and faster work, right? Yeah, which allows us to serve our customers better. It's
funny with AI, like a lot of organizations are worried about AI, and a lot of employees are worried about AI, and we're big believers that AI is not a crutch. It should be, it is a tool. Mm-hmm. We've never experienced something that's moving as fast, not even in my lifetime, but in the entire civilization, even like post, agricultural revolution and industrial revolution and information revolution, as fast as this. I mean, AI is doubling its capacity every 6 months. There's nothing in our existence that's ever done that. And so understanding how to use AI is so important, understanding that you shouldn't be scared of it. Use it to your advantage. Use it as a tool to help you in any role that you're in. I think that's so important. So, because it's not going anywhere.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, 100%. Do you see any ways coming down the pipeline that it's going to affect your industry specifically in an increasing capacity? Or anything unique that you're leaning into at this time?
Yeah, I think in terms of customizing our processes, I think we've already started to implement AI with respect to that, and even just technology in general. 100% of our client onboarding process is fully digital. We're obviously big believers of AI and big believers of tech, but we're using AI right now, like I said, in our client meetings, in our monthly meetings, in our weekly meetings, using it as a note taker, which is so important. And so the good thing I feel like about us is we're always ready to pivot. We're always ready to adapt, which I think should be the mark of a business, especially coming from a business owner. But we're ready to embrace AI however we need to embrace AI. However that looks today, tomorrow, down the road. We're using it even actually right now, with our own, with our CRM, we use AI in terms of trying to retrieve specific data points within our clients, like, portfolio or risk tolerance or whatever the case may be. And so it's definitely a strong tool, and it's something that we will never not use. And if anything, we'll just continue to use and embrace more and more.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So important to not be scared of it.
Yeah.
Maybe one day I won't even have to come up with my own questions.
Yeah, maybe.
I'll have fireflies on my phone. Maybe I already do. Who knows?
Yeah. Probably, yeah.
What does success look like for you?
Oof. Depends who I'm talking to. No, I'm just joking. Honestly, man, like, success is subjective. It's subjective to who you're asking. So, like, to me, like, success is, building a business and building multiple businesses where not only I succeed and, my business partners succeed, but where I see the team succeed. To me, that's awesome. Like, that to me is like success. Seeing your team thrive, seeing your team grow, seeing your team flourish, seeing where they were 3, 4, 5 years ago to where they have come now, and them thinking that they couldn't do it. And so to me, success is, seeing the team thrive. Success means being healthy. You can do all these things, but if you're not taking care of yourself, then what does success ultimately mean? Mm-hmm. Success is obviously feeling empowered, feeling nurtured, feeling respected. And so, yeah, success is so subjective, but success is legacy, leaving an impact, leaving a legacy, not even just in your organization, but on the people around you and the world around you. Mm-hmm. To me, that's a successsual life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Multifaceted, right?
Yeah. Oh,
people around you, health.
Big time.
Legacy.
Yeah.
I love it. Awesome. What's next for you? What's next for Qopia? What's next for you?
Honestly, like I said, sky's the limit. So Qopia's expanded. We have a Calgary office, which we're in right now. We've actually now expanded. We have a Medicine Hat office. We have a Lethbridge office. But I want Qopia Financial specifically to be a well-recognized, but more importantly, a well-respected brand, not only just in Calgary and in Southern Alberta, but all over Alberta and hopefully Western Canada. And so I want people to talk about Qopia to be like, oh, I know that advisor at Qopia, or I know that individual at Qopia, and they say it in a positive light. They say it in a good light. And so I want to focus on, building the brand, building the organization, mentoring, coaching the team, and just building something where it could be really, really, really great. And who knows, where I'm going to be 20 years from now, 25 years from now, but the name doesn't die. Mm-hmm. The name continues to exist and continues to grow, and just continues to flourish. Yeah. Yeah.
If you continue to do, everything that we've been talking about this entire conversation, there's no way that it won't, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Where can we send people to follow along or check out any of your businesses, yourself, etc.?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I'm trying to be much more active just to focus on building their brand. So, anyone can find me on LinkedIn through my personal LinkedIn through our group page, Qopia Financial, or qopiafinancial.ca.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Man, thank you so much for this
you.
Conversation. It's been awesome, and I'm looking forward to having another one down the line. As more things unfold. But really appreciate all the insights today and everything that we've discussed.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me, man. Really appreciate it.